You are Locked On Buffaloes Postcast, powered by Mile High Sports, part of Locked On Sports Denver on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Oh, Buff Nation. Oh, Buff Nation. I hope you didn't waste your time watching that performance tonight from the Colorado Buffaloes against the Utah Utes. I'm curious as to what Deion Sanders has to say after that game. Your final score, completely non-competitive, 53-7. The Colorado Buffaloes fall. Let's bring in our guy, Kevin Borba, to break down the game. Of course, you know him from the standard Locked On Buffs podcast. I'm your host of the postcast, Aniello Piro. Do us a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. That way you guys never, ever miss an episode of your Locked On Buffs content. And tonight's episode of your Locked On Buffs postcast is brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail. Not sure that was the case tonight for the Buffs, though, because when you make every move count, again, not sure that was the case. Pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later on in the show for highlights of this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Kev, I was pulling double duty tonight. I was covering the Denver Nuggets game, so I had the Buffs game on my laptop for the first half. I got home for the second half. And like I was telling you, I flipped it on, and it's like in the blink of an eye, they're down 7-0, and then it's 10-0, and they end up losing 53-7. What the heck happened in this game? I've got my thoughts, but why don't you tell me yours first?
Yeah, I mean, AP, quick question about the Nuggets. Did Nikola Jokic play?
Triple-double.
Triple-double. See, Nikola Jokic didn't play for Colorado, though, and he still had more yards than them in the first half. Colorado had negative 17 yards. You at home had more yards than the Colorado Buffaloes at the first half. Now, honestly, it was just a full-on beatdown. I misread this game completely wrong. I knew that in my heart of heart that Bird Ficklin was going to start. I just knew that Kyle Whittingham doesn't mention an injury and then not. Like, first of all, side tangent, I think it's infuriating that he sort of doesn't follow the Big 12 injury report rules, but I mean, it didn't matter anyway. Bird Ficklin looked like the second coming. He was amazing. He had nearly 300 yards of total offense in his first career start. He had 9 passes before this game, and he absolutely torched Colorado, right? They were out physical. They were out-coached. Deion Sanders himself said that Kyle Whittingham beat him one-on-one. If this was a game of basketball, to go back to that reference, Kyle Whittingham won 11-0, stopped the game, and then they said, let's run it back, and then won 11-0 again. Like, Deion Sanders and Colorado's coaches got skunked. It was embarrassing. AP, you're a Colorado guy. You've been around the program just as long as I have. Worst performance of the Deion Sanders era? I think it is.
Yeah, and I honestly don't think it's close. I mean, they had a terrible game, if I remember correctly, against Utah in Deion's first year, but Shedeur didn't play in that game, if memory serves me correct.
I was saying, I think it's sorry to cut you off. The only one that seemed as bad was the Oregon one. And even then, I feel like they showed more fight in that.
I knew there was a big one. Yeah, and, that was the Dan Lanning, they're playing for clicks, we're playing for wins clip, right, as well. That was a terrible day for the Colorado Buffaloes. And I want to say this as well. I mean, we got some live viewers here. Appreciate all of y'all. Like, I'm going to try to keep it light just because, like, there's not a lot of good to say, man. So, like, Buff Nation, like, feel free to use that comment section as a bit of a vent sesh. Let's keep it clean. Let's not use any profanity or anything like that. But feel free to get whatever you got off your chest, and Kevin and I will do our best to kind of reciprocate that energy as well, because frankly, there just isn't a lot of good to talk about. And I agree with you, man. I mean, they were embarrassed in that game against Oregon, but like, Oregon's a really good program, and that's not a discredit to Utah. Utah's a solid program as well, but it's not Dan Lanning's Oregon Ducks and whatnot. And I think what makes this game even more disheartening in the loss is the fact that it was coming off a bye. And it's also coming off the heels after a big upset win against Iowa State. I was playing golf yesterday, and I was playing with a guy who went to Iowa State. He had the club covers and everything. And he's like, yeah, you guys, upset us and this and that. And I was like, yeah, we'll see what they do against Utah. And they literally did nothing. I mean, I know they scored that one touchdown on the QB sneak, but the play that they were trying to run before, and you got Jordan Seaton, the offensive lineman, yelling at Ryan Staub to get up to the line to run the play. Staub's in shotgun, calls the timeout. I mean, that is just like the story of the game, of just total and complete discombobulation from CU tonight.
Yeah, and I think, and this probably should have tipped both of us off, and probably should have tipped everyone off in Buff Nation. Earlier in the week, Chidozie Nwankwo, star from last year, transferred in from Houston from a year ago, defensive tackle. He's speaking to the team, and he says, and I partially quote because I can't repeat the entire quote, y'all are lazier than insert a curse word there, right? He said, you guys are lazy. Deion Sanders also said players were quitting, right, on the team. And I just thought, like, maybe it's just some tough love, right? Maybe it's just like, you know what? Get the guys going, get the fellas going, talk down on them a little bit, get that energy. I feel like they came out flat. It didn't look like they wanted to be there. If you asked me to rattle off 3 players where is like, give me like a positive, I don't know if I could. And I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to discredit anyone. I'm sure there's guys out there trying, but the effort level from certain players who are expecting to go in the first round of this year's NFL draft or early in the first couple rounds of this year's NFL draft, not there. I think defensively, I mean, we all knew this teams that could run the ball with their quarterback would have success, but Utah was running the ball with everyone, right? They had 422 yards of rushing offense, 8.3 yards per carry.
Offense.
Yeah, just rushing offense. Just rushing offense. They had a guy with a 63-yard rush, a 58-yard rush, and a 56-yard rush. And I mean, Utah, mind you, they had a backup quarterback in. The only other time they scored more than 40 points this season was against Cal Poly, right? They scored 43 against UCLA. UCLA had 10 points against them. 10. And that's UCLA. And that was the bad UCLA, not the mediocre one that we've been seeing lately, right? Wyoming held them to 31 points, right? This Utah team has not shown this dominance all season long, and terrible performance, honestly. And I think if you're Colorado, I don't know where you go from here.
Yeah, and you and I are going to get into it throughout the course of this program, and we'll do some other stuff on the big picture topics as well. But one thing that I want to hit on is you're talking about players quitting, and I'm not trying to bring this back to the basketball and the Nuggets and whatnot, but it's kind of it's a bit of a duality. It's a culture problem with CU right now. And like I use the Nuggets because like when the Nuggets won the championship in 23, like perfect culture. I shouldn't say perfect, like really good culture, selfless play, playing for one another, team first basketball. And I understand it's a different sport and whatnot, but I agree with you, man. Like it to use the Dan Lanning quote, like they are playing for clicks, like they're playing, they're a hype machine, this Colorado Buffaloes team. And obviously not as hyped this year as they were the last 2 seasons under Coach Prime with Shedeur and Travis and all those guys. But like, you don't lose a game, and I'm listening to the radio broadcast on my way back from the Nuggets, and the guys, it's like coming out of halftime, they're talking about just play with some pride, and it's hard to take really anything positive out of this game today. And again, I just think what makes it so much more disappointing is the fact that you coming off the Iowa State upset, and then you have a bye week to get right and get prepared for this game, and not only do you lay an egg, you lay an absolute goose egg out there, and like I said, we'll get into some big picture stuff, but it's just so disheartening to see everything fall apart for CU because it wasn't that case early in the season. Like I know that they don't have a great record, they're 3-5 right now, but they hung in there against Georgia Tech. They were in there against, Houston a little bit in the second half. BYU, they were in that game to the end. TCU, lose 35-21. These are competitive games for the most part. And then, in the game where you're supposed to at least, be competitive in theory coming off the bye and off the upset, to lose 53-7, man, I mean, that's just flat out embarrassing. There's no other way to say it.
Yeah, it is. And I don't really know where you go from here. I do think you have I think you have some bad apples in this group. I do. You got guys not coming back on time for the bye week. And
we'll get into that.
When we find out who it was, Omarion Miller and Joseph Williams, at least from my understanding, were the guys that Omarion got in at the end, and I don't think Joseph played at all. And I'm sure there might be some other guys because there was some surprisingly low snap counts for certain guys as well. Like, you just have a problem. Like, you have a problem with this team. You have a problem with guys buying in, and I don't really know how to fix that this point in the season. Like, I feel like that's the hard part about this. And me and AP, like, we try to be, I would say, like, we try to be real with you guys, but we also try to be optimistic. And it's hard to find a reason to be optimistic. And I would say the only thing is, like, keep in mind you have some bright players, some bright young players like Julian Lewis, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. You have Quentin Gibson. You have hopefully DeKalen Taylor if he stays with the team. Like, there's a lot of, hopefully all these guys stay with the team, but there's just so many dark clouds hanging over this program right now. It's hard to find the few bright spots.
No, 100%. And yeah, I want to get into the Juju Lewis stuff and whatnot on the other side here, because I just think, like, at this point, man, like, you're playing to get into a bowl game. You know, they need one more game to be bowl eligible. Not a high quality bowl game. And, you know, here's my one optimistic point.
They need three wins to get in.
Yeah, it's going to be, or 7. I don't know what I'm saying. 4 and 8 is drilled into my head. Excuse me.
Yeah, they need 6.
yeah. 3 wins to get into your point. Here's my optimistic point of view, and it's really not that optimistic. And it's, you know, from the great movie Fast and Furious, the original. You know, it don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. In this case, don't matter if you lose by an inch or a mile. A loss is a loss, right? Talked about Georgia Tech, talked about BYU. Those are L's on the schedule when it's over and done with. There's an L next to their name right now after this Utah game. So, you know, I think we'll learn a lot about what's left in this room heading into the next matchup for CU. You know, what pride is left in the room, what direction do they want to take? And man, have we come a long way from Jordan Seaton sitting up there on the First Take or whatever the show with Skip Bayless, Undisputed desk, you know, putting the hat on and saying, you know, if you consider yourself your dog, why aren't you coming to Colorado? We are far away from when that moment took place to where we are right now. But all right, let me hit a quick break. When we come back, Kevin and I will get into some more big picture stuff with this CU Buffs team. A disappointing loss. It's kind of an understatement, just a disgusting loss, 53-7 tonight against Utah. Locked On Buffs Postcast, back in just a moment, folks. All right, you guys, real quick, let me tell you about our friends over at Mazda, because this episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week, I mean, I guess I thought DJ McKinney had a nice little swat on one play. Preston Hodge dropped a potential pick 6. Ryan Staub scoring the only points for the Buffs in this game. So I guess those would be your Mazda moments of the game, but really not a lot to write home tonight about for the Colorado Buffaloes. But when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Also tell you about our friends over at DoorDash here real quick, guys, because it's the weekend, and it's time to look back and crown, all the good sports moments in town, guys. And, you know, I know there wasn't a lot good for the Buffs, but the Nuggets got to win tonight. Broncos got a big game tomorrow as well for all you Denver sports fans out there. But who delivered, guys, is powered by DoorDash. And just like that, you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time that you ordered. And there's so many awesome benefits with our friends over at DoorDash, guys, because DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You can save every Saturday with your order, stack it up all season long, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms they do apply, and the promo period runs through 11/18. So you got a little time to build your streaks with our friends over at DoorDash. And let me also tell you about our friends over at FanDuel, because the NBA is back and there's no better place to get in on the action than with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at bigger payouts, guys. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. If you took Utah tonight, congratulations. That is about as sweat-free as it gets. Hopefully you bet it on FanDuel. If you didn't, be sure to check out our friends over at FanDuel and let them know that Locked On Buffs sent you. Okay, welcome on back into your Locked On Buffs Postcast. Aniello Piro, Kevin Borba here. Make sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. That way you guys never, ever miss an episode of all of your Locked On Buffs content. Trying to be a little positive, if there's a way to be, after a 53-7 beatdown that Utah hands to Colorado. Utah's been a thorn in Colorado's side for a handful of years now, and obviously they were unable to buck the trend here tonight. But let's do the quarterback stuff here real quick. Let's get this out of the way. Big picture thoughts tonight for CU. Obviously, Caden Salter was under center for a majority of this game. Just terrible today. I mean, I try not to bury these guys, right? They're college athletes. They're not pros. I try to have a little bit more leniency. But when you go 9 for 22 with 37 passing yards, no touchdown, and just an absolutely brutal interception, I don't think there's any other way to frame it. And Ryan Staub was a much better 4 for 8, 65 yards, and he did a little QB sneak there for the touchdown. So if you want to talk about Salter, you could. But I think it's now you got to really shift to Juju Lewis, because if Juju Lewis doesn't play, Juju Lewis is probably going to hit the transfer portal, Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado's in a tough spot. I don't think Pat Shurmur put Caden Salter in a position to succeed at all. I'm looking at this quote right now, and I wanted to read it from Salter. Quote, I felt like I had a great week of practice. Today was blindsiding. A lot of pressure we saw today was nowhere to be seen on tape. And so, fine, maybe Utah shows some new things, I guess, right? No adjustments made. Caden Salter looked frantic. I think the Caden Salter and Pat Shurmur marriage with Colorado just has epically failed. I do think it's time to go to Juju. I think the only reason you wait is if you want to preserve his red shirt, because he did play against Delaware. So that's one game played, right? So Colorado has 4 games remaining in the season. That being said, I think Arizona and West Virginia are both very beatable teams. And I think at this point, you have nothing to lose. Like, although we talked about them being bowl eligible, bowl eligibility feels like it's a million years away at this point, right? Like it feels very unattainable. And I mean, Julian Lewis, you want to keep him happy, right? He's the future of this program. I think you brought in Caden Salter to sort of be the contend now guy, and you're not contending for anything, right? So let's just, I think you just got to chalk it up to, it's an unfortunate situation, right? He came to play his last year of football here. He was hoping to boost his draft stock. He was hoping to repeat what he did in 2023, but instead you have to focus on the future, right? And the future is Juju Lewis. You spent however much money in NIL. You out-recruited Auburn. You out-recruited USC. Show the guy you love him. Show the guy you care about him, right? It's more important to salvage that relationship and sort of generate excitement from recruits, because let me tell you, there's some scary posts out there from some current Colorado commits, right? They were watching that game. They're posting about that game. You could find a couple of them on the Locked On Buffs social media page, right? Caden Salter tried his best, and unfortunately, it just wasn't for him.
Yeah, no, and I mean, look, this is a guy, he had 1 year of eligibility left, as you kind of alluded to, and I don't wish anything bad on Caden Salter. Like, I was very optimistic about Caden Salter coming into the season. He just hasn't been as good as I thought he could be. And it's not just Caden Salter, though. I know a lot of the blame falls on the quarterback because of how important that position is. Like, the team as a whole, like going back to the culture conversation that we had in the previous segment, like it just feels like things are a bit broken right now. And you and I will dive into some more big picture coaching staff topics in a later episode here on your Locked On Buffs YouTube channel, and obviously the audio feed as well. So make sure to stay tuned for that. But it's so disheartening to lose a game like you did today. And I think you go into damage control mode right now. And like you said, you probably backed up the Brinks truck to get Juju Lewis here. You mentioned the redshirt possibility. Like, Juju Lewis, if he plays to the level that we think he could, he's not going to need a redshirt year. Like, this is a guy that's going to go to the league sooner rather than later if he can be that guy. Still very young in his collegiate career, obviously. But, it's about keeping your positive players, the Jordan Seatons of the world, bought in for next season. You mentioned that they're not competing for anything. I mean, they're competing against themselves and, of course, their opponents the rest of the way for a bowl game. That's where we're at right now. And so I'm curious, just to see what the tone of the room is at practice, in the meeting room, leading into the game next week as well. And frankly, like I said, a loss is a loss. Doesn't matter how you lose. But this is the type of loss that you worry, Kevin, can derail a season even more than it is currently.
Yeah, I think this loss could derail a culture, honestly. And I think that's the hard part with the transfer portal method. And we'll talk about this on the other Locked On Buffs, but I want to get into it a little bit here because we're going to focus on a bigger topic there.
Yeah.
When you bring in 30 to 50 transfers per year, you're doing so with the hopes that everyone's going to buy into your culture, right? You're doing so with the hopes that everyone's going to shake off their bad habits that they developed at their previous stops, because there's a reason most guys are in the portal, right? Some of them want more opportunities, more money. But a lot of these guys, I mean, they didn't work out for a reason, right? And I think if you're Colorado, you have some soul searching to do. And this, like, the hard part is you have a month left of football, and I don't know how you sort of like jazz everyone up after this game. Like, I don't know how you get the soldiers going. Like, I don't know how you get the troops ready to line up for 4 more wars, because it's like you just got your asses handed to you, and you're literally showing no signs of fight, no signs of life, no signs of caring. And there's a comment in the comment section here that I wanted to highlight. It just says, play all the freshmen. Upperclassmen have embarrassing adversity. And I think there's some upperclassmen who have really contributed a lot, and I don't want to go that far. But I think you do have to really consider playing all the young guys, being like, you know what, this is your guys' program. What we have here is not what we want the program to be. So you guys take it from here and continue this on to next year. And hopefully they can get behind that.
Yeah, no, and to that point, I've been in these post-game press conferences. I've been around Coach Prime for the last couple of years as well. I don't get the inclination that he's leaving at all, right? Like, I know that's been a big topic of, like, is Deion going to be back after a bad year? I think there's two things that I think could derail or remove Deion Sanders from Colorado. One, let me say this. I don't think Colorado any way, shape, or form would ever fire Deion Sanders. I mean, his buyout is the equivalent of, like, Colorado's GDP. Like, that's just not happening, but he also is a cash cow for them. I think the medical stuff is first and foremost the one thing that could, sideline Deion. And we'll see what happens with Florida State. I hate to bring that back up as well, but maybe they get desperate. Mike Norvell, they fire him this offseason. Maybe they throw just an insane amount of money at Deion. Again, that's just pure speculation on my part. I think the medical stuff would be more likely to, end Deion's coaching career at Colorado than that. But you do have to kind of wonder, like, where his head's at after a season like this, after a game like this here tonight. Before we get out of here, though, because I don't want to get into Deion stuff, you and I will talk about that a little bit later. A couple of guys in particular, Joseph Williams, Omarion Miller, reports circulating that they did not make it back to Colorado by the time that Deion had set from the bye week. And because of that, they did not play. I believe in Omarion's case, did not play in the first half. I'm not so sure about Joseph Williams, but a handful of guys, from what I've heard, did not show up in time after the bye week and were essentially disciplined for that. And I got to respect Deion for that. He's going to stick to his guns. He's some of his best players. I understand, but, like, he's a man of his word when it comes to that. Like, we're talking about Deion the man and whatnot, but from the football perspective, it's tough.
If these guys thought that Coach Deion Prime Sanders was bluffing, I beg you to go look at his time at Jackson State. He benched his own son, Shiloh Sanders, for the SWAC championship game, literally the conference championship game, and it's his own blood. He benched him, right? So if these kids thought it was sweet and they thought, you know what, I'm gonna get that delayed flight, I'm gonna hang out with the homies for one more day, and I'm gonna chill and wherever I'm from. We don't know everyone who was late, so I don't want to. I know for sure Omarion and Joseph didn't play, but, like, I don't know what their reason was. I don't know if they missed a flight. I don't know if they were whatever, but you have to be an adult, right? It comes a time in life where you are being paid to do a job, and there's, in the real world, like, you don't get to just show up late and be, like, not punished, right? We all have jobs, all of us, for the most part, right? Or if you're in college, you have classes where it's like you're paying for those classes and you don't get to just miss every class. You don't get to just not show up to your job on time because it'll cost you. And yeah, I mean, tough lesson to learn. And I think that speaks of sort of this team's mindset where they don't care.
Yeah, no, I think you said it well, my friend. And I mean, I don't really know if there's much else to say after a 53-7 thumping by Utah over Colorado. We'll see what happens here moving forward, folks. 4 games remaining left in the season. At home against Arizona next weekend, on the road against West Virginia, home against Arizona State, and then at Kansas State. So not exactly, West Virginia, winnable game, but the other 3 might be a little tough. I know Kansas State's been up and down and whatnot, but yeah, buckle up, folks. But guys, really appreciate y'all, guys and gals, for sticking with us here on your Locked On Buffs postcast. Do me a favor, do Kevin a favor as well. Hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. That way you guys never, ever miss an episode of your Locked On Buffs content. But all right, I think it's going to do it for us. Get some rest, flush this down the toilet, and we'll do it again next week, folks. An ugly, ugly game for Colorado. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Have a good one. Don't let it stick with you too much. Talk to you soon.